Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne, and in this podcast, I share my real-world self-publishing and small business experience with you. So let's get started with today's show. Now, today's topic is one of the most contentious in self-publishing, and we're going to talk about the Kindle Unlimited subscription and then the Kindle borrowing programs, and whether they rob authors of royalties. Now, before we get into any of that topic, we should probably talk about the various programs and what they mean. Now, the first one is Kindle Unlimited, and that is a service that Kindle owners or even people with the Kindle app can subscribe to. Its monthly fee, and they get up to 10 books a month that they can borrow, quote unquote, from the system. And then if they want to get another one, they'll have to return the books. So they can, you can see why they would have that limitation on that. Otherwise, people would go crazy with it. Now, for authors to get any royalties off of a Kindle Unlimited read, they have to be enrolled in the KDP Select program. Now, it's each title. So if you have several titles, you can choose which titles you want to have in KDP Select and participating in the Kindle Unlimited program, but that's optional. And of course, it requires exclusivity to Amazon. So you can't be selling it on your website. You can't be selling it through other channels, except maybe through expanded distribution through KDP, not anywhere else. So you must be exclusive to the Amazon and Kindle Direct Publishing universe. You will only get paid royalties for the number of pages that the reader reads on first opening of the book. So let's say one of your readers gets the book and they're just kind of casually looking at maybe the first chapter. They close the book. That's all you're going to get paid for, is the first chapter. Well, if you sell the entire book as not part of this subscription program, if they just bought the book, they would buy the whole book and you get royalties for that. And the royalties you get aren't a set fee. Amazon sets up what they call the Global Fund, and they pay authors based on these page reads that they get per month. So you can figure out how many page reads that is. It is in the KDP dashboard. You can see how many pages your book would be equivalent to in this Kindle edition normalized pages, KENP metric. You can figure that out so that you can see how many pages the book was. You can see how many pages they might read. So you can see, I think, why self-published authors get a little annoyed by this, even if they're participating in the KDP Select program. You can kind of see why they get upset by it, because they're losing out on the normal royalties that they would be paid if someone actually bought the book. But they have to figure out some way to normalize this among all authors and among all the reading activity. They've got to have some way to do that. And this has been seen as probably the most fair way to do that. And you can't incentivize readers to read more of their book. You can't, do little game playing with that. You can't just say, "Oh, read so many book pages in Kindle Unlimited." No, you can't. You can't do that. You cannot do that. So don't. So you can kind of see the issues there. and the issues continue with the other programs that are available. Now, the other program that's kind of similar to Kindle Unlimited, but it's only for Prime members, is the Kindle Owners Lending Library, or KOLL. So you will see these metrics of how many pages these people read. If you are participating in the program with KDP Select, you go to your sales dashboard on Kindle Direct Publishing, and you'll see KU/KOLL reads. Those are the Kindle Unlimited and Kindle Owners Lending Library reads that you get per month. And so that you can see what you get there. Now let's go back to the Kindle Owners Lending Library. It works very similar to Kindle Unlimited. They have a limit though on the Kindle Owners Lending Library of 1 book per month. 1 book per month. And let's say they want to hold it over for another month. Well, they can do that, but they won't get another one. But the page reads that you get are similar to Kindle Unlimited. Similar situation in that if they only read the first chapter and the first open, that's all you get. Now, confusing the whole lending library issue is Amazon Prime Reading. Now this program has come later in the process. As you might expect, it's only available to Prime members. This one is different than the Kindle Owners Lending Library. Whereas in the Kindle Owners Lending Library, you can pretty much get most of the titles that are in the Kindle catalog of eligible books. On the Amazon Prime Reading program, it's limited to some select titles that Amazon chooses. Now, most of the titles from what I can see, and there's only a very few of them. There's, as I'm recording this, I think there's about 3,000 titles. So it's a very, very small subsection of the entire Kindle universe. And the Amazon Prime Reading selections are titles that Amazon wants to really promote. And it's very unlikely that the typical Kindle self-published author will be any part of the Amazon Prime Reading program. Now, that may change in the future, of course, but right now, it's highly unlikely. Now, I did see some reports online that some authors, publishers were approached about participating in the program, and then there was some sort of deal going on, but I can't confirm whether that is true or not. But it's very, very unlikely that the typical self-published author would be approached by Amazon for this program. So you don't really have to worry about it. You wouldn't get any royalties anyway. Because apparently there aren't being royalties paid on the Prime Reading, but again, who knows what's going on there. Now, confusing the issue even more is the Kindle Lending Library. Notice how the name of that is so very close to the Kindle Owners Lending Library. With Kindle Lending Library, they have a Kindle device, they've purchased a book, and they can lend it out to a friend or family member at no cost to the friend or family member. And during the time that the friend or family member is reading the book, they do not have, the actual owner of the book does not have access to it. And I think there's a limit on it. I think it's like 14 days. So there are some restrictions to that. But I don't think authors can get really ticked off by that, because that kind of stuff has been going on forever, especially with print books. You know, you bought a print book, and what did you do? I know I did. You share it with all of your friends and it gets passed around. It may not even come back to you. I have a few books out there that I've lost and I have to buy them again someday. But that's been going on for a long time, but there's just a lot of restrictions with that. So there is some limitation on it. So, I think it's better than back in the day, actually. So we've got 4 programs: Kindle Unlimited, Kindle Owner's Lending Library, Amazon Prime Reading, and Kindle Lending Library. Now, here's my results. Okay, I did some analysis of what I would have made. I mean, I broke it down. I teased out all the numbers out of my KDP sales dashboard, the historical figures. And and by the way, the new beta dashboard for KDP sales is fantastic. It makes it even easier to figure out these numbers. But okay, so I did a comparison for one of my titles, my most popular title, and I figured over the 3 years that I had registered this in or enrolled this in the KDP Select program, I probably lost maybe, I don't know, 16 actual sales. So that wasn't encouraging. And especially since I made only like, I don't know, a few bucks, less than 10 bucks on it. I would have made more if I would have gotten the actual sales. But yet I don't really feel like I'm getting totally robbed from it because I have voluntarily enrolled my titles in KDP Select, and I do that because otherwise I'm not going to get anything. I'd rather get a little bit of something than a whole lot of nothing. So I think it just depends on your attitudes towards this whole lending, borrowing, subscription program. And if it really bothers you, then don't participate. Just make people buy your books, instead of getting them through a subscription program. But I would caution you to think a little more deeply about that in terms of today's trends. Subscription services are becoming the norm for everything, from software to just everything in ride sharing. So much is becoming subscription based, and it's good for business because it does help even out revenues for them. So you can see why businesses are moving to that model, and I don't disagree with that, and I think people like that model. So if your book isn't available in a subscription program, people won't read your book at all. So I think very carefully about this, whether you want to participate or not. And I hope that I've given you some food for thought on these programs. I know it's very complicated. I will include some links because I do explain this in a lot more detail, and also how to evaluate your author platform and how you can predict how many unit sales you'll get. So I've really done a lot of analysis, and I have a course that is how to sell your self-published book on Amazon, and it's through Udemy, and I explain all of these things. So I think you'll want to check that out, and I will include a link in the show notes and show descriptions so that you can access that if you want, whether you get a deal on Udemy or not. They always seem to have everything on sale, right? But I think I would check that out because I've done a lot of analysis of this so that you can have some sort of way to predict whether you are, making any money, and, how can you change the way you market your book, and does advertising work? So, It's a pretty intensive course, and I would suggest you check it out. But I hope that you found that even this podcast was helpful. And if you did, please rate and review the Heidi Thorne Show on Apple Podcast. I would really appreciate that. And don't forget to subscribe to the Heidi Thorne Show on your favorite podcast platform. I'm on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean. There's a couple other places you can find it as well. So subscribe so you don't miss an episode where I talk about these important issues. And here's some good news. You can listen to my podcast, The Heidi Thorne Show, on Apple Podcast on your Alexa device. So there's a new Apple Podcast Alexa skill. And once you install that skill on your Alexa, you can listen to all your favorite Apple podcasts there. I'm going to include a link in the show description so that you get instructions on how to use Apple Podcast on your Alexa. And if you like the video version better, or you like to listen to the podcast on YouTube, I'm on YouTube. You just have to subscribe to my Heidi Thorne YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe to turn on the notifications so that you get an alert when a new video is out. And of course, please share the Heidi Thorne Show with your other friends on social media. Now, my self-published books, of course, are available on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. All you have to do is go to my Heidi Thorne author page on any of those sites, and you'll see all the books that are available there. If you'd like to connect with me, my website is very simply HeidiThorne.com. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you again in the next episode, and in the meantime, have a great day.